Moses Valley. I mean, those are more than 70 years old.
Yeah.
You ask them about this life, most of them, even it's a modern life. We have more facilities, equipment, whatever, but they prefer to get back into the ancient life. It was simple life, definitely. You know, just to you know, I mean, take your animals somewhere to feed them. This is the main thing.
Well, they reminisce because for them, they were young.
That's why, you know, my uncle, he's like, you know, 72 years old, and you know, 3 years ago, his son brought for him cell phone. I mean, I was wondering how he could use it because he couldn't, you know, I mean, he doesn't write, you know, read or write whatever. And once he received a message from the company, and he was, you know, saying hello, 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 hello. I said for him, this is a message, definitely. And he told me, no, there was someone actually. There was someone was, you know, calling him, definitely. So sometimes, you know, even they cannot maybe adapt with these, you know, with this technology.
But why we have that in England as well? You know, the older generation.
I don't blame them. Sometimes, for example, nowadays, you know, I mean, we talk about the technology, definitely, about the internet, about all these things. I mean, nowadays, for example, if you're gonna to send something, I mean, just you write an email and you send it directly. But it doesn't have like that test. I mean, when you receive a letter on the post office, a written one, so it's something different. Honestly, even nowadays, unfortunately, for our wedding parties in Jordan, you know, we use nowadays a lot of, you know, modern, let's say, you know, instruments, whatever, musical instruments, whatever. So most of the Jordanians definitely they delete, you know, these ancient, you know, instruments, definitely, like the flute, whatever, exactly. So
you can hear a note, isn't it?
the problem that I've seen a lot of guys from, you know, the Bedouin tribes, you know, they think to use these techniques. This is, you know, I mean, it's a shame. It's something not good. Definitely, it gives like a bad reputation.
Yes. That's right.
But this is a heritage, actually. This is a heritage.
It's also the real Bedouins. They don't have TV or anything, do they?
Still, in Jordan, we have 12% such a real, original Bedouin still this month. They still no money. You don't find some of these, you know, facilities and technology in their houses.
And they're very happy, I'm sure.
That's right, of course. They are, you know, even, you know, they have hospitality. Prefer to receive a bit whatever. That's why, you know, like 2 years ago, I met two guys. They came from Australia. They came just for social, you know, tourism, right? Just to connect with those Bedouin tribes. I took them for one of the Bedouin tribes of the desert, and we stayed with them for 5 days. We slept on that tent, whatever, and they were, you know, taking the pictures for their life. They made like a film, definitely, about this life. The last day before we left them, definitely, that, you know, the tourists, that they wanted to offer something for them, definitely, and they refused. They refused, definitely. So even nowadays, you find some of locals, they use this traditional life as a business, right? So as a business. For example, if you go into Wadi Rum, this is a Jordanian site near Petra, like 1 hour driving, where you find a lot of Bedouin tents, such as stores like this one. You go in to drink something, whatever, but they use this life for a business. That they know this is an attractive thing for the tourists.
They make a living. They've got to live, haven't they? So make all sorts of people to make it work.
That's working,
We're not all the same. That's it. Thank you.
On the top of that mountain. Now, nearby that arch, we have found one of the Islamic and Crusader castles here in Petra, which means now, you know, we follow also the sequence technology of Petra. On 635, Petra was conquered by Muslims, and between 9th, 10th, 11th century by Crusaders. Now, both of them, they used it as a fortification, so they built several castles, forts, watching towers, definitely. Now, since after that, I mean, between 11th up to 17th century after Christ, Petra was an abandoned city. No one was living here. Why? Because all the Petra roads were shifted. So no one used it.
So it's just desolate, except the Bedouins.
Except the Bedouins, but they came here recently, definitely. But it was a abandoned city for 600 years. In fact, if you look over there, sir, where you see this white tent, have you seen it? Yeah. Under that tent, we have found one of the, you know, Byzantine churches in Petra from, you know, basilica design goes back to 436 after Christ. We have found inside a lot of mosaics. Basically, when we talk about all these mosaics, they give the people usually like interpretation about life before and after Jesus.
Yeah.
In fact, we call it the Church of Four Seasons, definitely.
4 seasons.
Exactly. But it's really good to see it later on. Definitely. But, you know, for me, it's one of the most beautiful churches in Jordan.
The most what?
Beautiful. Yes, so it's really good to see it.
Brilliant.
Civilization before those caves, tombs, whatever. And now we are nearby the Roman road or the Colonnade Street. We call it the Cardo Maximus, which goes back to the 2nd century after Christ, 106 to 109. Was built for the Roman Emperor Trajanus or Trajan when he came from Rome, Syria, all the way to Jordan to be as a memorial monument, definitely. Now the Cardo Maximus, which means like a market or a shopping area, where you see to the left-hand side the remains of Roman shops.
They're all shops.
At that time, at that time says these shops with the villas were distributed in both sides. But unfortunately, in 363, we have got one of the earthquakes in Petra, where you find the
earthquake.
A big damage on this part from this. Now, typically, Romans used to build 2 different roads. This is the Cardo Maximus, like what we have here in Petra. The second one is the Decumanus. Right? So like a cross. There's a central point here. We call it THRU. It was used as a traffic light nowadays. In Petra, you don't see the Decumanus, but you see just the Cardo. Why? Because the geology of Petra doesn't help to build the second road. So Romans, instead of a Decumanus, they put the priority for residential area. That's why they built this part into the right-hand side, to the left-hand side, where you see remains of a Roman residential area. So they built their house, exactly. They lived here, but they never lived on the caves. They built their village here. In fact, they mentioned when the Byzantines conquered Petra, they used to live also at the same village at that time, definitely. Now, says when you look straight ahead into that gate, that one, it's another arched gate. Was built between 129 to 130. They mentioned for the 2nd emperor when he came to Petra, Hadrianus or Adrianus, definitely to be as a memorial monument also. By the way, sirs, if we dig more, we will find another Nabataean level.
They would have been
this road,
here.
was built at the top of the Roman, road, definitely.
But that's what they did
now,
in England.
Most of the people asking what happened for Nabataeans when the Romans conquered Petra, definitely. Now, when the Romans came to Petra, 80% from the Nabataeans, they went to Syria, into Bosra. 20% they were living with the Romans themselves. The question is, how was the Roman treatment for the Nabataeans? Because most of visitors, they think that Nabataeans were working as slaves under Roman people. This has never happened. Our only proof about this question is, can you see those pillars, right? You see one of those pillars is complete, it's not broken. The shift or the body of the pillar, it's a Roman. But the capital, it's a Nabataean capital. This is totally good proof that when you conquered, when you take over some of those countries, but you give the population freedom to practice their architecture, their whatever. So it should be a good relation, should be good treatment at that time. That they never, worked as slaves at that time. What you see behind you says this tree. It's one of the oldest trees in Jordan. It's 450 years old. We call it Pistachio atlantica, one of the juniper trees. You can imagine, Bedouins here used it as a medical tree. Can you see these leaves? That locusts take some of these leaves, they mix them with the hot water. They think it's wealthy, especially for diabetes. I don't find that, but this could be. I believe in herbs. This is a tribal medicine. It's really great, definitely. Now, please look straight ahead into that mountain. You see another natural formation as a camel with 2 humps. Not with 6 arms, with 2 humps.
Not 6,
Well, I will use that direction. So we have 2 Nabataean temples. There's a nice spot to show for you those temples. But on the way back, you come directly from this way.
Okay.
So let's go to show for you those temples. About the church, that way. By the way, now because we have this in Petra, and we divide, schedules in Petra. Today, I think you do the lower part, and maybe that's all, and then you go back slowly. You take more pictures, whatever. You can climb to the royal tombs, maybe, right? It's up to you, definitely, and then you can do whatever you want. Now, for tomorrow, definitely, you can do that trail. You climb to the high place, sacrifice. Yes, exactly, and come, and use that. Walk through via Wadi Farasat to get to the city center again, to the church, right, the lower part. Now, for the third day, there is the monastery. The monastery.
The only thing is, the Thursday, when I'm here, we have to be picked up at 3 o'clock, so we've got the morning and we'll be back.
Well, exactly, that's why, that's why, for the third day, let's say that it's much better to stay just on the lower part, maybe. Still the monastery, now, which is located behind those mountains, and You know, later on I will show for you the direction to the monastery. Gate by Prague University. And they started, you know, digging here in 1992. So they spent 6 years to find it. And if you've been here before 1992, you couldn't see this building.
Wouldn't have seen any of it.
It was covered with the sand, actually.
Wow.
So it's a Nabataean temple that goes back to 100 BC.
Yeah.
It was used for the Nabataean king god, Dushara, the god of mountains.
Yeah.
It's around, you know, 5,000 square meters up to 7,000 square meters. Inside, as you see, we have 3 levels. The first level, we call it portico, was used for people themselves. The second level is cella. Cella was used for royal and rich people, and the third level is sacred people, was used for a high priest.
Yeah.
Now here's one of the latest theory created by one of the Swiss teams. You know, usually, so this one, as I told you before, was discovered by Prague University.
Yeah.
Basically, find such big differences between Prague University and, you know, a lot of Swiss teams. So, one of the Swiss teams mentioned something totally different, that this was used as a city hall. That for the Nabataeans, if they had any urgent assembly, this is the place where they met themselves. Yeah. Makes sense, could be true. Now, when you look to the structure of this temple, sometimes you think that this belongs for a Roman, not for a Nabataean.
Yeah,
I don't blame the clients to think it this way. Why? Because when the Nabataeans built it, they didn't build these pillars.
No.
So these, you know, were added by Romans. When they conquered Petra, that they reused this temple also. Where is also behind you another temple. We call it the Winged Lions Temple, because we have found 2 statues of lions with their wings.
With wings?
Yes. This is from a Babylonian mythology about life after death. It goes back to 100 after Christ was held for the Nabataean goddess Al-Uzza, the goddess of fertility. Please look into that mountain, sir. You see the top, there's a tree, and there you see like 2 guys standing on the top. That one is the high place of sacrifice. So the monument, it's located behind them in 100 meters, but there's a nice spot there, such a panoramic view, that you see everything on the lower part.
Is that where we're going to walk?
Exactly. Now, after that, as I told you before, about backward via Farza Valley, behind the mountains, as a semicircle, then you get to the city center again, that you see the royal tombs there. Right? Exactly. So it takes 1 hour and a half, more or less, to get to the city center again.
Come through the same way, just come on through.
Yes.
Right the rest of
So this is if you don't like to get down from the same, you know, way. We have seen those stairs lead up to the high place of sacrifice. So what you need just to follow those stairs to the top, and then you come back from that direction, definitely. As I told you before, it says about Thomas' tomb, one of our tracks. So that path, then you walk. Yeah, can you see? Yes, can you see that pillar?
Yes.
Right, you go to the right hand side. You know, takes like 4 hours up to 6 hours. It's a long way also.
We know for another time. So, to get to our end.
Yes, we have seen everything on the lower part, all the highlights of the lower part. We walked like 4 kilometers. This is what we call it city tour or round the trip tour, including all the highlights on the lower part. This is a palace. We call it the Daughter's Palace. The name was given by local tribes. That the Bedouins, they thought this palace was built for Pharaoh's daughter in Egypt, but this is incorrect. That this palace was given as a gift from a Nabataean king Aritas IV for his daughter Shaqila. In fact, either on her, you know, let's say, on her, let's say, marriage, definitely. But for me, it has a different story. On the 1st century before Christ, Shaqila, she got married one of the Roman emperors. His name was Antipas, or Antipas. So he was living in Macau. This is a Jordanian site 60 kilometers south of Amman, our capital. At that time, all the Roman people were invited for a big celebration on that site. One of those invited people, she was the dancer Salome, that she was dancing in front of the Romans. So this emperor, he loved Salome, and he wanted to get married here. Now her mother asked him 2 conditions if he would like to marry her daughter, that he should divorce Shaqila, the Nabataean daughter. The second condition, he should bring John's the Baptist head as a dowry for her daughter.
that?
And that's why he did both of these conditions. When Shakila came here, she was a divorced woman. This is a big shame to find a royal, one of the royal families, you know, exactly. So her father built the palace as a gift for her. Well, we mentioned Nabataeans never lived here, so she gave it as a gift for the god to be as a temple. And we call it Dusharatemu. Now says, comparing what we have seen before, this is the only freestanding building in Petra. But the Nabataeans here, they use the new technique on the architecture. They put like wooden pieces with these stones to make it flexible with the earthquakes. By the way, you see down there the last quarter dam in Petra. Even that one has been restored. In fact, yes. Can you see that building where the windows with the gate? There's a museum. The museum, yes, right. Now, there's still the monastery, which is located behind this mountain. There's another royal tomb like the treasury, but it's bigger than the treasury. You see the restaurant down there, you pass it, you find a path like this one, you walk 300 meters, 400 meters, then you find in front of you stairs. All what you need to follow those stairs all the way up to the top. So there are 900 stairs, so it takes like 45 minutes, 1 hour more or less. Definitely. You are like about weather for today and tomorrow even. With this weather you climb in very easy. Well, you get to the top stairs, you see the left side, you take pictures, and you get down from the same way, because honestly, you know, about the monastery, we don't have another, you know, trail that you know you do it or to get back. I should use the same way, definitely. Now it says down there that we have 2 restaurants. Bedouin restaurant and bedouin 5 stars, 3 stars. They offer just a lunch meal here. In fact, so, but they are expensive, honestly. So each meal like $27, definitely. And the Petra, do not eat too much actually, because after when you eat, you cannot do anything different. Anyway, so you take some snacks, whatever, sandwiches, whatever. Now, about the monastery, just behind the restaurant, you walk for a short distance, you follow the stairs all the way up to the top, definitely. Now it says it's up to you, either if you would like to do it today or tomorrow, whatever. So, as you want, still early, it's 1:30 definitely, so 1:30. So maybe if you would like to climb there, it takes like 2 hours definitely that you climb, and then you get down.
Then you fall off the top.
And then you come back down the same way.
Right, so I mean not 2 hours to climb, to see the monument, to get down, everything.
We've got time,
Right? Yes, because you have an overnight in Petra, you can stay till the sunset time. So 7 o'clock p.m.
I was going to ask you,
Yes.
what do you think about the night scene?
Well, about Petra by night, definitely. As I told you before, that show, like I mean, you see Petra lighted with candles. In the front of the church, there's like a bedouin show that you can hear a lot of musical instruments, and they offer tea and short explanation from the tour guide, definitely. So this is the program, definitely. It costs 12 dinars each person, right?
So what we could do then, if I ask you, because just to say for us, we don't have to go back to that evening meal, because that is separate, it's not included, so we can eat around here. We don't have, so we could stay, because so we go back to the tour, so we have to be out of here by 7.
Luego, ahora sí, ahora va a una marcheta.
Koho už to líbíte? Já tady na samém atmosféru.
Ono, my jsme vůbec ani nedívali, či to je, to je podle mě jedno.
Originally it had only one and an entrance porch. The mosaic of the seasons in the southern aisle is from this period. In AD, the church was remodeled. Two side abbots were installed and a two-storey atrium built. The nave was paved in marble and stone in geometrical design. Chancel screens and a pulpit and warmers that were restored as the St. Church of England, isn't it? As with the mosaics of the Northern Ireland, the eastern of the southern Ireland. Around AD 600, where they gone? There's a check to the Freemasonry. They got a lot of birds and things, haven't they?
Fountain key. I can send you a copy of it.
People at all day down the well, but we get the water as this underground spring. I can't see, can you see?
All in the well.
Dzisiaj jestem tam widziała tak zarosła, tak nie dopisała na widok. I had any dinner.
Lively meeting place for the city's populace would have been like that, you see. See, they're quite civilised, weren't they? Very elevated upon a stepped podium. This is it.
Well, that's even more interesting. Yeah.
The little cult, they like it.
Really, they look nice, really, you know. They're not very nice, is it?
Come in with them.
What were you just
Because we were on the boat.
His leg a bit, he's limping, this white one. See that one leg?
Yeah. You see it?
Yeah, for no reason. You're the heroine that's making the rage. You're a heroine that's making the rage.
I never get in the picture, you know that.
Always we don't stop to do photo. Maybe you will pay more.